Here's why clairvoyance is the least important psychic sense. What's up everyone, it's your boy Kyle Gray. Welcome back to my channel. My life's mission is to help as many people get spiritually connected as humanly possible. And in this space, I like to speak about the intersection of all things spiritual and spooky to help you have your very own experience. And today I wanted to speak about clairvoyance and developing spiritual vision and why I feel it's less important when it comes to the rest of the psychic senses. You've probably heard about clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairdeluded. And today I want to speak about why I think clairvoyance is less important than maybe the rest of the skills. I was recently speaking at a conference in Europe somewhere, and I heard or overheard one of the other speakers say that clairvoyance is the most ascended of all the psychic senses. Therefore, the person who has the ability of clairvoyance is far more spiritually connected than maybe someone who has the ability to feel like clairsentience. And I was triggered. I was triggered because I had had a completely different experience. And I'm not here to chastise that other speaker or teacher, but I want to offer an alternative way of thinking. So I've been interested in this world for over 20 years, and I am someone who has been considered a clairvoyant. I was the boy who could see angels. And, I've done thousands, tens of thousands of private sessions and readings, and I had many visions that have come true. And a few years ago, maybe in my late 20s, I stopped seeing things as much as I used to. I used to have this very outward experience of being able to see angels and see auras and have visions. And in later years, or in the last few years, I've had this experience of a very internal experience of just having deeper feelings and maybe seeing things, but more internally than projecting outward. And I remember one day not being able to see the angels the way I always used to and having this feeling of loss. My whole entire life, I've been the boy who could see angels. My whole entire life, I've been trusted to be this kind of spiritual visionary and this person that can see, and then all of a sudden no longer being able to see the same way I used to, and kind of feeling worried that I was losing my gifts or my talents, and what will this mean for my future? And I remember taking that question into my meditation practice and being like, angels, why am I no longer able to see you the way I always was able to? And I received this answer of, the reason you can no longer see us is because our physical vision is actually an illusion. And it tripped me out because I was like, wait a minute, your vision is an illusion. And then I started to receive all these downloads of, yes, well, basically, everything in this entire universe is energy. Angels are expressions of the divine. And so we can't actually see the divine, but we know it's there. And I got this experience that the feeling of angels is far more important than the experience of seeing them. And instantly, I felt a great deal of relief, but not for myself, but for all of the people that I've met on my spiritual journey. Since I was 15 years old, I've met countless people who are desperate to have a spiritual encounter, desperate to see their guardian angel, desperate to be able to have a vision or see an aura. And now the angels are saying this is less important. I felt relief for those people because I think so many of us attribute our self-worth down to our spiritual abilities, and many people don't feel good enough because they're not being able to see the way they're reading about or hearing about from other, well-respected psychics out there. And I think this is where Hollywood and movies have really messed us up, because I think so many of us are probably having clairvoyant experiences, spiritual encounters, but because it's not showing up like Angels in America with this angel smashing through the window with beams of light, like looking like Tilda Swinton dressed in white. They're not really believing it. They're not believing what they're experiencing, and they're discrediting these highly spiritual experiences because they're not Hollywood enough. Well, I'm here to tell you that I don't think it needs to be like that. There was a book I read a few years ago called Dying to Be Me. It's by the incredible Anita Murjani. And if you've never read that book, I highly recommend it. I think I read it in about 4 hours. At the time, I was working for the Sun newspaper, the Scottish Sun, and I was writing a column there. And every month, I got to review a spiritual book or speak about a spiritual subject. And I chose this book by Anita Murjani. And to cut a long story short, and I'm sure you've probably heard of her, but if you've not, check her out. Super cool. She basically died and came back to life. And during that experience of her dying and coming back to life, she had this encounter where she went to spirit, and she went to this realm, and she had this experience of knowing, this 360-degree experience beyond time and space. She was seeing her loved ones coming to her. She could see a family member in a foreign country trying to get over to where she was, dying, and she could see her husband and her mother. She was having this encounter of being able to see all things at once, but at the same time, feeling like she'd returned to oneness and experiencing the presence of her late father all at one time. And I remember when it was in 2012, I was speaking at I Can Do It in London. Louise Hay was still touring at that point, and I was sitting backstage with Louise Hay, and Anita Murjani came backstage, and I was like, Anita, I really just want to speak to you about, going to the other realm, and what happens there, could you see, and were the angels there, and all these things. And I remember Anita expressing this feeling that she had of she was everywhere and connected to everything and could feel and know everything all at once, but it wasn't seeing with her eyes or hearing with her ears. It was just this deeper feeling. And that's what clicked into place that day when I was having that message from the angels of our vision is actually an illusion. It took me back to when I was reading Dying to Be Me by Anita Murjani, this awareness that was created. It wasn't a vision, it wasn't a hearing, it was a knowing and a feeling. And that led me to the knowing that feeling our angels or feeling guidance or feeling intuition or feeling the divine is far more important than seeing. Because when we leave this body, our hearing and our vision is not coming with us, but what is our sense of knowing, our identity, and also this feeling. And when we feel, we're not just talking about feeling it with our actual body, we're talking about feeling it with our soul, feeling it with our spiritual heart. So, if you are someone who gets feelings that there's a presence with you, or has a feeling that something is going to happen, or has a feeling that there's a message coming to you from the universe, or have a feeling that someone in the spiritual realm is trying to reach out to you, that is the most important skill to work on. That is the most important skill to develop. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the most ascended skill of the psychic senses. Clairsentience and claircognizance. I think they're kind of the same thing. The sense of knowing and the sense of feeling. So if you can feel and if you can know, I think you're bypassing a non-essential step because it's not coming with you. Now, that doesn't discredit having inner vision. That doesn't discredit having visions and dreams and experiences on the inside. But all the stuff that we're looking for out there, that's less important. That's not important. You don't have to see your angels to know they are there. And that's the message that I'm here to share today. You do not have to see your angels to know they are there. The knowing and the feeling is the most important. So what's your thoughts on this topic today? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to this channel. And I will see you in the next one.